We have Mr. Tony Lal from TAPA, the chairman of TAPA APAC. We have Mr. Andy Choi, the deputy director of IMDA. We have Mr. Daniel Chang from Ascent Solutions. And of course, we also have Mr. Sunil Senapati, the CEO of XC Trade Work. Now, together with these experts, we also have from Scala, Mr. Ian Tyson. So really appreciate that for coming over here. So let's start the session with the first presentation by Mr. Tony Lal. All of us know Tony. I'll be really surprised if anyone over here wouldn't know Tony because of his experience and contribution to the supply chain. Really a very, very experienced and versatile gentleman, and I'm proud to say that he's my boss. So if I'm doing good, it's because of him. If I'm doing bad, it's because of me. Okay? Let me put that also. Thank you so much. All right. So Tony, a quick background about Tony is also that how many of you know that he had experience working in the police force, and from there, his transformation into supply chain is amazing. I'm interacting with Tony on a daily basis, so I don't want to read Tony's bio here, but let me say from my heart, if you're connected with Tony, every word you learn from him, somehow or the other, connects with you at a future date. So that much is his, vision and forecast. So what we see to get it back. So that is his vision. So with that kind of an experience and expertise in supply chain, especially in terms of secure supply chain. So let me welcome Tony on stage to let us have an enchanting session on the enhancing supply chain resilience with AI. Welcome on board. Thank you.
Thank you very much for embarrassing me. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen.
That is from you, Tony.
And welcome to all of those online. So we've got members from all over Asia Pacific, so a warm welcome. And the camera's here, is it? The camera's here. So let me just give everyone online a quick wave. Okay, so I'm going to be on and off vision. So. Oh, there's another one there. Okay, so I knew Danny would have me under some form of surveillance. Thank you, Danny. Listen, thank you very much for that introduction. Look, as we go through Do Is Right, in terms of predictive analysis, which we're going to talk about in a moment, I was actually doing predictive analysis in 2015, and we talk about AI. We were just using some simple methods, which actually then became AI. Right? So, we got to a level where we needed now to perfect it, and that's when we started to engage AI. Okay, so let me just go to. I've got 24 slides and I've got 20 minutes, right? So you work out the maths, okay? I don't think you need AI for that. Maybe you need AI for the presentation if we're going to be on time, but let me try and do that. Now look, this is an interesting slide. I just want to take a poll from everybody. Allegedly, AI adoption in 2022, and within 3 years, we are going to be at 38%. Those of you in the room who think we will be at 38% by 2025, put your hands up. Those of you that don't think we'll be at 38% by 2025, put your and I agree. And look, the drivers behind that, and Scala is here today, and you'll hear me making several plugs for them. Not because I'm a shareholder of their organisation or anything of that nature. I've actually put 2 of my staff through their program, and this is the problem: is that the knowledge gap in terms of what AI is. When you go to these seminars, and I was at one this morning, and actually this is my 3rd one today. My first one was my kids' school. My 2 daughters won an award, so I had to go to that, and I had to rush to. Thank you. I'll pass that on. Then I went to the Supply Chain Leadership Forum at Suntec. But some of the discussions this morning in relation to AI, is incredible, because really, what is AI and what are you expecting it to do? Because I do believe, like the discussion Sam was having with me earlier, blockchain was oversold. AI has been oversold. Everyone's jumping on the ESG bandwagon, as was discussed this morning. So, when we look at AI, what do you really want AI to do for you? Okay, so we'll be talking about some of those in a minute. Okay, so look, here's some of the tools that you could use. So remember, I was talking about predictive analysis. So I took over, I was working in China. I took over the supply chain role and Center of Excellence role. Now, in that role, when I joined the company, we had significant failures across the whole place. When I joined the company, I was told to bring my fire suit, because I would just be going around putting out fires. And after rushing around doing 16, 18-hour days, I suddenly realized we're never going to fix the problem. It's about 2013. We're never going to fix the problem until we get to the root cause. And you'll see some of the things I will talk about. And what I always lecture about is going back to the source, go back to the beginning. Because if you don't get the beginning of the process correct, you'll never fix the process further down the supply chain. So the only way that I could actually solve this problem was to predict failures. So I was able to predict vessel failures with my containers on in automotive, and one of you that have worked in automotive know that it's now, just in time. They say just in time, I mean it's now. You have to have it there. Otherwise, you shut down the line, and the charges are anything up to $700 per minute. You stop a line, they're only about $700 a minute at the yard, right? So a lot of cost. Now, in doing so, I was able to ring up the forwarder and say, "You need to do this action now." And the forwarder used to say to me, "But everything's on track." I said, "It's not on track. You just carry out our instructions." So anyway, they would carry out the instructions. But after the event, they would come to us and say, "How did you know it was going to happen?" And we knew it was going to happen because of that predictive analysis, that tool that we built with our forwarder. All right, so look, once I had that predictive analysis, and if you look at the advancement in technology from 2015 till now, right now we have so much what we can do with making sure that we put these solvers in place. And then once I have the solver in place, and once I have that baseline, once I have it running, then I can start to apply AI in a meaningful way. And then that's when I can actually take it down into the machine learning stage. I can actually start to do that analysis. And I think that's some of the myth that we have in the industry, is that everyone just thinks that if you put AI on, it's going to solve the problem. And as was discussed this morning, if your data is messy, AI is not going to solve the problem. So you have to go back to, remember what I said at the beginning, you have to go back to that root cause. Because unless you fix it at the root cause level, you are never, ever going to fix your problem. Your problem will keep reoccurring. So look, I'm not going to go through everything here, but one thing I want to talk about is IoT. Everything that we have in the supply chain in the future will be tracked 100%. And that means that we will have visibility of everything throughout the supply chain. And why is that so? If you look at the technology in terms of IoT, it's becoming cheaper and cheaper every year, which means that the opportunity to actually then start tracking your shipments at shipment level actually increases significantly. And of course, if you look at the platforms that are out there, there are more platforms. Some are standalone, some are fully integrated with a master planning solution, which would probably be the best way to run your business, and some are a hybrid of that. But the most important thing about that, if I can sense a problem, then I can actually solve it. So those leading platforms out there are the ones that have all of that combined onto one platform. It means that from the time you have a red flag, the planner knows it immediately. And that's the difference. Okay, so in terms of when you're doing your decision-making process, that can be instant in today's world if it's all on the same platform. Okay, RPA has been around for some time, but we know with RPA we don't always have to use it. We can always write scripts to do that. Okay. All right. So what does the RPA do? RPA is going to reduce. We all know about some of the manpower shortages we have, and again, going back to Scala, we have to reskill our people, and we're not doing that fast enough. When unfortunately, the investment in people is sometimes looked as a cost rather than a benefit. And if you look at a lot of staff don't always want high wages. What they want is investment in them, because if they have the right investment, their earnings will go up in the future. They know that, because if they have all of the tools, if they have the ability and the skill sets to deliver, in the future, they can go to organisations and they will add so much value that that organisation will never, ever want to let them go. So you've got to have that investment in people to get somewhere. All right, so look, I'm not going to go through all of this. We'll send these slides out afterwards, right? But I just want to pick up on a couple of things. Where we talk about predictive analysis and we talk about automation, it means that we can really forecast things in advance. We can forecast a problem that's coming. And what are we doing in today's world? We're waiting for the problem to be told, and then we're running around trying to fix it. So hands up, those of you who have built zero failure supply chains. Okay. All right, and that's not, it's not about whether it's about me or anything of that nature. What I'm trying to do is give that inspiration out there that it can be done. Because if you can predict failure, I can actually ensure my supply chain does not have a failure. I may have an event, but I already have a plan to recover from it. And where that means that zero disruption. So, once I put these processes in place, we did not shut down one manufacturing plant, and yet we run 84 locations across Asia Pacific. Okay, so it can be done. In terms of your performance management, where we try to measure, you can measure yourself in real time, and that's important because we know if we can measure in real time, we can react in real time. When we talk about collaboration, unfortunately, there's a reluctance to share data. And I don't think it's going to go away. Somebody was using the word hopeful. I'm hoping that everyone will start to collaborate and share data. Hope is not a strategy. It doesn't work, Drew. It doesn't work. Hoping something's going to happen isn't going to solve the problem. And that's the difficulty. Is that data sharing, data is gold, correct? We're all told data is gold, and now everybody wants to share the gold. It's not going to happen. There's a conflict of interest. At the end of the day, UPS, FedEx, and DHL are not going to share their customer data. It's finished. Don't even try to organize it. And then people say, well, we can screen some of the data. Hey, they don't want consolidated deliveries. UPS model themselves as the UPS guy turning up at the office to collect the shipments. That's how they model it. And that UPS person will make the relationship. They are taught to make the relationship with the person who is booking the shipments. Because once you have a good relationship, then that person will put all the shipments to UPS. So they are not going to share their data. So, there needs to be another solution out there. And I don't know what the answer is yet. I'm still thinking about that. Okay, so investing in the wrong side of the supply chain. Remember what I said. If you don't fix the problem at the beginning, you'll never fix it on the last mile. Look how many people jumped on the last mile during COVID. How many companies suddenly all set up, suddenly last mile, we can solve your problem last mile. hey, if you don't focus on your supplier, if you don't know what your suppliers do, how can you ever fix your problem? Because if your supplier's allocation isn't there, if your supplier's capacity isn't there, you're not going to fix the problem. One size solution, right? We talk about cost. There are opportunities to have a one size solution. However, there are opportunities to have more than a one-stop shop. And that's because sometimes not everyone can provide you everything that you need. And that's an issue. And they go back to the hope. I hope it's going to solve that problem. It doesn't work. You really have to map it out and really understand what you're integrating if you really want to solve a problem. Looking at risk. So I just want to talk. I'm going to talk about risk a little bit more. So I'm not going to talk about it on this slide. But in terms of that transformation, how many in this room have done a digital transformation project? Okay, that's good. All right. Now, having done that digital transformation project, how many of you hit hurdles on the way? Yeah, it's significant. And how many of that was down to people resisting change? Yeah, that's true. Two handsets, and it's totally correct. So the resistance to change is there. Why is it changed? Sorry, why is it there? It's because, go back to Scala. Again, if you don't train your people, if they don't understand what they're doing, if they don't understand that this change is actually going to help them, it's actually going to help them get up a level, stop doing the level, basic things, like educate themselves and get up to another level where they can actually start learning. When you digitize, and once it's implemented, once the digitization was implemented, did the staff morale go up? Hands up. If the staff morale went up? Yeah, it does. If the staff morale goes up, because now they realize the benefits of it. And the benefits are not sold because the education is poor. They read in the newspaper that everyone's going to lose their job with AI, they're going to lose their job if you digitize and things of that nature. And that's not the case. We have a shortage. So we need to upskill the people we have in the supply chain so that in the future, we can be more economical in terms of running our business. Okay, so we talk about resilience with technology. The biggest mistake that companies make is that they go on a digital transformation journey. And you know what they do? They don't map it against their processes. And they don't map their processes against the digital flow. So already you have an issue. Also, when they do a digital transformation project, what do? They leave the Excel in place. They didn't design it out. And if you don't design it out, the day somebody has a problem, what will they do? They just revert back to that safety zone, right? They revert back to what they know. So in terms of your process, you've got to design that out. And of course, everything should be mapped. Now look, Iceland, I've got to run because I've got a 1 minute flag. I'm going to let Madhu do some of this. 1 minute. I told you I need AI to do this for me. Okay, so look, you're going to get these. A lot of you know already about TAPA. I just want to quickly talk about the risk assessment. Where is it? Okay, look, this is basically a flow of everything that I implemented. What this gave me significant visibility across the whole supply chain. Let me get to the risk assessment, and the reason why I want to talk about the risk assessment, I think we've got a slide here. That's what I thought earlier. Next one. Okay, thank you. Okay, risk assessment. If you map out your whole supply chain, if you walk the process and walk the process, you will find your gaps. And by finding your gaps, you'll list them all down, because if you can address them and if you can digitize them, you can create a perfect supply chain. You have a plan, your business continuity plan in place which is going to stop you having failure. So look, TAPA has designed this course last year, and it's now gone into a standard. We've all done 2 trainings. The training is so valuable. AXA sent a team of people for training. AIG support the last training. Insurance companies are big on this. So if you're not on board on risk assessments, please do. Look, I'm going to rush because I'm being flagged at the back, so I'm not going to talk about all of this. I will just have a quick plug for our intelligence tool. Use it for your risk assessments. Thank you very much. That was my last slide. Thank you, AI.
Thank you, Tony. Well, this also gives us a heads up that we have to quickly finish the presentations and assemble for the panel discussion. It's going to be much more interesting. So a quick takeaway from Tony's presentation. The important areas I notice is that the areas to avoid. Don't jump into a haste. Just because AI, transformation, all the big words coming up, something magic is going to happen. Don't jump into it. Last but not the least, when you walk in with your process and see and evaluate the risks over there, you will all come to know that risk assessment and mitigating those risks is more important for us in our daily business. Thank you, Tony, for that. And of course, the rest of the slides we will definitely share with you all. I'm also happy to continue the session where Tony left, and on a separate note and a later date. But thank you once again, Tony, for this. Right. So let's move on to the next presenter. In continuation to what Tony has mentioned, we have now unleashing the future of AI supply chains in warehouses and logistics. This is a very interesting one. Okay? So I definitely would like to welcome Mr. Andy Choi, Deputy Director of IMDA, to help us walk through this presentation. And during this presentation, we also have a case study. And definitely, we also will have Mr. Ivo Verha, who is the co-founder and CEO of Powerhouse AI, who will join us during the case study presentation, which will be read by Mr. Andy Choi. The speaker's profile, we will share it with you. Everybody is an expert in their own fields. In the interest of time, I would like to move forward. So let me welcome Mr. Andy Choi.
Thank you, Tony. That was wonderful. Great that you didn't stick to just the slides and you shared so much from your experience. I think we benefited personally as well. And to everyone online, hi. I'm Andy. I'm the Deputy Director of the SME School Digital Program in IMDA. For our overseas guests today, IMDA is the technology regulator and the industry development arm of the Singapore government. I don't belong to every side. I leave my other friends who are more stringent with rules to do that, and they regulate everything from the spectrum for connectivity all the way to everything that you import electronics. We do all that under IMDA. I am fortunate that I came not from the government background. I was always in corporates, I was in startups, enterprises, and I have been seeing different industry transform. And I came to IMDA with that goal of bringing that know-how from industry to help the rest of Singapore's SMEs take it to the next level. So my team is called SMEs Go Digital because we serve all 23 economic sectors in Singapore to help them digitize, and I'll share a little bit more about that. So this is a great achievement, I think, from the Singapore government having that might to say, let's help every SME level up. Let's help them to be more efficient, use technology to lower the need for very manual processes and clunky everything. So through the years since the program started in 2012, the earliest version, we have morphed it. 9 out of 10 SMEs have adopted at least some digital technology. And we are talking about one-man little retail shop all the way to even 100, 200-man medium-sized companies. That's how we categorize SMEs. And we do different things we have different ways to help encourage the adoption of technology. More than 80,000 SMEs have gone through our program since 2017. And as a entity that tries to control what are the right solutions that we recommend to our SMEs, we also go through a stringent process, and we have more than 450 solutions that pass the rigor that we recommend to SMEs across all sectors. And of course, logistics is one of the sectors that we look after. And earlier, Tony had that slide that shows 3 stages for digital transformation. In the same way, we also look at elevating the digital maturity of our companies in 3 stages. And so we use this tool called the Industry Digital Plan. And we go down to the ground. We understand the needs and pain points of each sector. We map it out then. What would be the beginner solutions that every company needs? Most basic stuff. All the way to advanced, which we call it stage 3. And we have different tools again to solve the needs across all stages. But the first starting point is this document where you can download it. If you Google for logistics IDP, you will see that we have a document that we prepared back in 2021 during the height of COVID, and how there's some companies that have adopted technology to help them overcome the challenges that COVID brought. So even the video that you will see on the website, you see many of them still masked up in the office. Only one guy unmasked talking, because during the height of the time, they really needed technology to help them with a lot of challenges. So do take a look. And as I said, we are the curator of the solutions that SMEs take up. And right now on our portfolio, there are not too many logistics solutions. They're mainly around the warehouse management and transport management. We also have freight management solutions that are readily available for SMEs to sign up. Which just means that we think that they are good enough for SMEs to quickly take up, and we do give a bit of incentive for the SMEs to get on board, up to 50% of 1 year's subscription. But we know SMEs just need a little bit of nudge sometimes. But as Tony said, a lot of times it starts with people, and then of course the strategy must be right. But I guess the money also helps. Yeah. So we don't have that many levers, right? So we make sure that we incentivize our SMEs to do so. But I know today's topic is not so much on what we do as the government, but it's more on AI and supply chain. I know about AI in my time running startups. We have been deploying AI in different ways. And I lived and worked in the Netherlands for a while. And when I went to Rotterdam, I've always compared it with, of course, Singapore's port, right? Oh, Singapore, right? We are better. We're the best. Rotterdam have always prided themselves, and actually the Dutch have prided themselves to be the innovators. They brought many different innovation mindsets and methods to the world. So I was very curious about Rotterdam. And in Rotterdam, in the port, they have been digital and AI empowered since the 90s. In the 90s, they've already done automated guided vehicles, your AGVs, in the port. They've already implemented automatic container stacking in the unmanned crane lifts. Right in the 90s. They only needed your 10 to 15 men per day to run a port operation. That was what they claimed. And I was like, wow, really? AI isn't new. Because anytime that we use a computer to automate some decision making, that is already artificial intelligence. I know that this year was the boom. Everyone thought AI is such a new field because it's telling me things that I never knew. And it's creating new random concepts and images that just blew my mind. But I think if we go back to fundamentally what AI does, it's supposed to just simplify most of the things that we take a lot of effort to do. And that started with just how can we automate many manual processes, reduce errors, reduce accidents, and reduce over-reliance on some people that might cause problems, right? We've always had that. So AI did that for us. And I'm no logistics expert, so I'm not going to dive into how AI has changed different aspects of it. So I'll cover very broadly. I'll bring up the case study later that will share, I think, a lot more expertise there. But from just AI in general, of course, predictive, as Tony mentioned, that's key to unlocking the real benefit of AI. Can it really predict a lot of things that we take too long to figure out, or we need too much experience to have the instinct? And with so much data, and in logistics, it's all about the data, timeliness, completeness, integratedness of data. And we need that to be integrated to understand it, of course. But are there ways in which now we can have them not so well connected and still predict. I think that's one part of what generative AI's promise is, and we might see that. But of course, the rest, I think computer vision, that has come a long way too, especially with the hardware cost going down so much and connectivity becoming so cheap and so proliferated. It is now almost ubiquitous. You need the computer vision to be just everywhere. Your phones, your CCTVs, even the most basic ones that you deploy now is 1080. It's enough resolution to detect objects, not small SD cards, but packages, right? So AI in supply chain, again, from end to end, there has been not just end to end, but even fundamentally just on the data all the way up to the processing. AI has been there. And of course, streamline planning, streamline decision making, your processes, and ultimately, AI's premise should be to make your supply chain faster. It should be, again, less error and smarter, right? Of course, faster, smarter, faster, same thing on different sides. But that should be the ultimate aim of the AI. Of course, we will talk about security and the risk. But why we all need AI? Because as the industry developer, as the guys who are going to the SMEs in each sector and say, please adopt technology, we don't think it's a nice to have any longer. Labor costs are not going to go down. It's never been going down, but it's only going up. Inflation, cost of living, very uncertain global environments. You need to stay competitive. And if it's not about embracing the technology to give it the edge, what is? Is it really about just relooking at a process and cut out the 2 hours and hire a cheaper guy to do it, or just get a guy to work harder every day? It's longer that. And a lot of the SMEs we talk to still have that mindset that I can still do it the same way, just be a bit better. My customer service is better. They call me and I pick up the phone and I answer better. That's my differentiator. We don't think so. Because it's very clear. If you do not embrace AI and take up the automations, you will lose your 15% of your logistics costs. Your service level will not be improving because the technology can help you. You just have to understand it and accept it. And as part of the government, we are fully cognizant that we have to help shape the AI landscape. So things like a framework, the AI governance framework, which tests out the validity, the accuracy, and the risk of different AI models out there. IMDA has championed that and worked with industry experts and data scientists, AI scientists to come up with a framework to check how secure, how robust are certain AI models out there. And that's called the AI Verify framework. You can check that out online. We also came up recently, just announced that we have a new AI sandbox for solutions that want to test out how different AI technology, especially generative AI, can be impactful on certain slightly regulated or more complex industries. And we have created a sandbox for that. And of course, not forgetting robotics. That's how most of the automation and the intelligence for logistics started. Right? Robotics, we are also pushing as a government to integrate the buildings and the system controlling buildings with the different firmware and software of standard robotics out there. And we call it the robotics middleware framework. And we're working with large building owners and developers to deploy it so that your robots can be end-to-end controlled from the same console, and you can move through the building, up the lifts, through the secure gantry, all that. So we are, again, as the industry developer, trying to figure out what are the key infrastructure pieces we can help the industry. But then the applications, right? What are the use cases? I think that still depends on many of us, the vendors, and also you as the companies who want to embrace trying to think, how can AI change the way I work? And AI, of course, has its risk. Some of them, of course, came a lot because of the recent Gen AI sound bites in the media. And so I won't go on too much because I think we all know, we have all heard these scary examples. But instead of me talking too much about overall, AI, I thought it's easier if I hand it over to Ivo, who runs a AI company with a great application, and I thought he could share what has he seen in the market and what can he solve. So in that, Ivo.
Thank you. Thanks as well for your nice words about the Netherlands. I appreciate that. And first of all, for matching your shirt to the slides, I haven't been that mindful. I really like it. But we're talking a lot about like AI and technology in general, but AI should never be an end. It should be a means to an end, of course. And why is technology, every time we go to like a supply chain forum or technology forum or logistics forum, why is technology every time coming up, right? It's because of some of the big challenges that logistics is facing. And probably the things that you can see here on the screen are not that new for most of you. Deloitte every year is doing a study on the core challenges of logistics, the state of logistics and the state of technology. And a majority of supply chain companies has indicated that these three factors, actually a couple more, are marked as very challenging or extremely challenging. And we as a logistics technology provider, we actually recognize these challenges with our clients as well. For example, labor scarcity. We are working with a large 3PL company here in Singapore, and they came to us like a year or two ago, and they said, we're facing a very high turnover of people. And that leads to a lot of inaccuracies in their receiving process specifically. And when in the warehouse your receiving process is going wrong and your data is not accurate, it actually affects all your downstream processes, right? And they're not the only one, because in logistics, the average employee turnover is around 15 to 30% on an annual basis. So it's really, really significant. Another one, more demanding customers. 2 months ago, an American logistics company came to us and said, we need your technology because we are working with a partner, and that partner is supplying or distributing mattresses on our behalf. But they are making a lot of mistakes, which leads to returns and which leads to unhappy customers, right? And that distributor was not using any technology. They didn't even have a warehouse management system. And they literally told to their partner, if you do not deploy technology, we will cancel the contract. We will work with another company who actually is technology, who is actually using technology in order to make their processes more efficient and be more accurate. So we're hearing this more and more. So in order to solve these challenges, technology is an inevitable part of the solution. It's not everything. Indeed, people is also a very important part, maybe even more important, but technology definitely is an inevitable part. But as said, and I think Tony pointed this out already, technology adoption at this moment is not that high, and especially when we look at like warehouse automation or AI adoption, it's relatively low. So within the warehouse sector, warehouse automation around 30% at this moment, and much lower for AI, around 14%. And actually, these numbers are deceiving because when you think 30%, 1 in 3 warehouses using automation, it's probably a lot, right? If you maybe walk around in the average warehouse, it's because of the definition of automation. So most automation is actually mechanical automation. So even a conveyor belt is counted as automation. But if you look at like robotics, use of robotics or AMRs, if you walk through every logistics conference, everyone is talking about AMRs and robotics. Probably the real number is more towards 1 to 5% and not 30%. So yes. Oh, previous one. Yeah. Technology. Right. So why is this technology adoption so low? Oftentimes because of the lack of a clear business case. That's one. And secondly, lack of proper change management. And that's really the people part of your automation project. We've been walking through to a major logistics company, for example, here, and they were advertising the usage of drones. And that they're using drones in the application. So walking through the warehouse, and I saw a cabinet with 5 drones in there, and I asked, "Are you using them?" "No, we're not using them. Only for publicity." Like, okay, that's. And so they really didn't think it through properly and how to use these drones to their advantage. And because of that, if you look at hardware automation specifically, we see a trend more towards digital automation as well, which oftentimes is a little bit less invasive for your current processes, and digital automation specifically for software-based automation. And the big advantage of that is lower capex, which everyone likes to hear, and of course that digital automation could be less intrusive to your warehouse processes and therefore requires less change and reduces the barriers to entry for a logistics company or a warehouse company to deploy automation. So it could be a great stepping stone. And AI is of course a very important part of that. It becomes even more and more important. Like literally every month we see new applications of digital automations, new applications of AI. One of the leaders in that space is actually NVIDIA. I don't know if everyone knows NVIDIA, but they're like the market leader in the microchips that run all these AI models. I think they have like a 90% market share, and they have made a nice video that summarizes some of the use cases of AI within the supply chain, actually from A to Z. I'm not sure if I can. Perfect. We can play the video.
From the moment a vehicle first approaches a distribution center, AI streamlines the receival process. With computer vision, retailers have the ability to detect and identify arriving vehicles and count the boxes as they're unloaded, reading their labels for quick identification. AI has already made sure that these products are the ones in demand. With AI, forecasting is smarter and more accurate, giving retailers insight into what their customers want and when. As products move down the conveyor, intelligent automation monitors their progress. AI can adjust the conveyor speed, speeding up or slowing down to maximize employee productivity and safety. The same intelligent automation boosts quality control, identifying damaged boxes to ensure they never make it into a disappointed customer's hands. And that's just the beginning of the optimizations that AI can bring to the supply chain. NVIDIA Omniverse makes it possible to simulate distribution center design, improving workflows and throughput with photorealistic, physically accurate virtual environments. Retailers can develop, test, and manage AI-powered distribution centers in a digital world, and then bring those optimizations into the real world. Digital human simulations test new workflows for employee ergonomics and productivity. Autonomous mobile robots safely navigate the distribution center floor to sort, store, retrieve, and palletize products. Ultimately, AI solutions are the key to creating the distribution center of the future, increasing throughput with computer vision applications, pick-and-place robots, and autonomous vehicles. From initial receival to truck loading and dispatching, AI adds intelligence that streamlines the material handling process. And machine learning recommends ideal routes for deliveries. So once on the road, truck drivers can get orders to customers faster and within shorter time windows.
So you see this video of like 1.5 minutes.
From the moment a vehicle first...
To the next one. Can we go to the next slide? Thank you. So as you can see, like even this 1 minute, 50-second video already showed like 10, 15 different use cases of AI within the supply chain, from predictive analysis, indeed, of your demand and supply, to even creating a digital twin of your warehouse in order to run different scenarios based on your specific situation, to advise you on the best layout of your warehouse. So a lot of things going on, a lot of possibilities of AI. And we as Powerhouse, we focus on one of these use cases as well. We're focusing on is redefining the job of the warehouse associate by automating time-consuming and manual counting and verification tasks, really with the goal to make sure that the warehouse is much more efficient, but first of all, human error free. So how do we do that? With an application that runs on a mobile phone and that uses, and that first of all digitizes your warehouse processes from end to end. So think, for example, your inbound process or your outbound process. And we use the power of computer vision, or simply the camera on your device, to automate tasks like counting your inventory, or reading all the different logistics documents that you're dealing with, or identifying the good even when there is no label. And indeed, as you believe, you said at the beginning, there is no standardization within the logistics sector. Everyone is keeping the data for themselves. So we aim to make the warehouse adapt to that situation, because we also don't really have the illusion that there will be a unified standard, and at least not anytime soon. So what does that look like? Will you play this video? Or I can just click it. Technology. Thanks, Andy. So this is a use case of what a receiving process with our technology can look like. So receiving often starts with a packing slip from the truck. You take a picture of that packing slip. We read all the line items, so whatever is in that truck. So we read it, we extract it, we remember it, and then you start taking pictures of all the pallets within that delivery. So first of all, take a picture of the label, either barcoded or not barcoded. Take a picture of the pallet, and we will automatically cross-check and verify it with with the packing slip that we just took a picture from. Another use case, cycle count, pallets in the rack. You want to check if your warehouse management data is correct. Take pictures of location, pallet, and labels, in this case non-barcoded, and we will verify if your warehouse management system is correct. So these are all kind of different use cases where computer vision can already be used and is already used today. For example, at companies like ST Logistics, or we're working also with DHL here in Singapore. Last use case, also with respect to computer vision, how can we make sure and scan like multiple barcodes or multiple boxes in one go to do your cycle count about 36% faster, literally by moving your phone over shelves with boxes, and you will read all the barcodes and everything in one go. In general, this was about 22 to 36% quicker than manual barcode by barcode scan, which is deployed a lot at this moment. So this is how we are. I think, can we go to the next slide? Will be the last. Awesome. Yeah, so this is in short. I hope we've given you a good flavor of what AI can do. There's, of course, much more to talk about. And we are, of course, also not the only company. But if you want to continue the discussion, or you want to try the technology within your warehouse, just get in touch with me or visit our website at powerpoint.com. Andy?
Thank you for taking that. Yeah, it's no need to continue, from that, right? That's a great show and tell. But I'd like to say that everyone's talking about Gen AI, and I don't have time to talk about it. So I will talk about it maybe at the panel. We might talk about it. But I'm sure there are many of us here who are not SMEs. You might be in Singapore, you run the logistics, supply chain, warehouse, business, and you've been thinking about digital transformation. I've been thinking about how do I be a digital company, because being digital has a different connotation to where your value is in the business. And part of what we offer to Singapore companies is we want to onboard any company that has the ambition to become a digital leader. And we have this program where we literally help to coach, to provide resources in stacking up your digital teams. So manpower, know-how, training, all that, and connect you with other digital companies. And we're talking about currently we have got food manufacturer companies, we have got construction companies, we have electronic manufacturers who are on the program trying to become a digital leader. And so if any of you run companies that also have that ambition, but not sure whether I can convince my board of directors to give me the resources yet, we are here to help. So do talk to us later, and we can help you think about how you could step into it. So again, I'll just end off by saying, we as IMDA have a lot of, I think we're very privileged to see how the sector develops, and we have a lot more to help. But it all comes down to whether we hear how we can help you and to then bring the right solutions and the right help to the market. So do come say hi to me and my colleagues as well who are there, and let's have a conversation. Great, thank you very much.
Thank you, Andy. It was very much needed. Great presentations. I mean, just want to quickly summarize before we have the next speaker on board. Andy laid out a very in his slides initially. He spoke about the advantages of AI, which was very well complemented by Ivo in his presentation, and then well supported with a case study too, right? So if you look at the takeaway from this is that from IMDA says that empower, enable, and engage. That's the right way to go about it. So we'll talk more about it during our panel discussions. So to our participants and our audience online, please stay tuned. We got 2 more presentations followed by question and answer sessions in the panel. Very interesting topics. So let me welcome the next speaker, Mr. Daniel Chan. So Daniel Chan is the Director of Professional Services Ascent Solutions, who's also an exhibitor here. We heard about Tony talking about laying the foundation for AI, and we heard about Andy and Ivo sailing us through that particular journey. Now we have a real, I would say that implementation part, 5G digital twin and IoT, retrospective lens of successful implementation. So let me welcome Daniel Chan on stage to give us some insights into this.
Can you hear me? Yes. Great. Thank you, Madhu. I was just joking with Andy and Madhu just now. I am the substitute. Actually, by right, it's Mr. Huang Yihang, but unfortunately, you get Daniel Chan. But what I can offer today is that I'm not here to just give you a plug-in or a pitch about Ascent Solutions. I think I want to share with you from the operator standpoint, actually, what is the real thing that actually happens on the ground. So I hope that today, whatever I'm going to share is something that is practical and that you can take back with you. So once again, good afternoon. I'm Daniel. I'm the Director of Professional Services in Ascent Solutions. My colleague, Mr. Huang Yihang, who's the Director of Innovations, and he's DTW. Later you'll see what is DTW. That's his baby. And unfortunately, he gives his apologies. He has some personal matters to attend to. So I'm going to represent him today. And what you see here, 5G, digital twin, and IoT, sounds very sexy. Sounds very big. Okay, I'm going to avoid all the buzzwords here, but basically 5G is just about better data connectivity, reduced latency. So in the earlier presentations, we all heard about AI enhancing supply chain resiliency, enhancing transparency in terms of the data that we're going to get. So I'm going to share with you something that is a bit more foundational. What can help provide that kind of resiliency and provide the basic building block? And let's recap how technology has moved. For those in the early stages of digital transformation, I think that's the first thing, which is digitization. So when it comes to digitization, we're talking about companies, SMEs that are dealing with data that is in hard copy. So when you hear digitization, the first thing is about scanning your hardware, your hard copy, converting them into soft copy. Then those companies that are already a bit more evolved or in the next phase of their digital transformation journey, that's where you get digitalization. That's where some companies are already using some form of ERP to put in all their data, and you are able to export them into CSV, Excel format. I think a lot of us probably here today are already using this. And what is the sexy layer that we're going to add on? The innovative layer, that is the BI dashboards, where you have Power BI, Tableau, and then what you want to show to your senior management is usually in a business intelligence layer that you can see, you can tell the story and visualize. But with the advent of 5G, with great faster data connectivity, with reduced latency, I think I want to talk about the third D, which is digital twinning, powered by industrial IoT. We want to see how digital twin and industrial IoT can be coupled together to be potentially a game changer in the security and surveillance of protected or valuable assets. So what's a digital twin? Most of you here might already know, but let me just recap the definition. So a digital twin is basically a digital replica of a given space or a particular objective that you're looking at. So in this particular case, I'll be talking about the digital twin warehouse, or in short, DTW, which actually in this case is a replica of all the essential components or information that is within a warehouse. So maybe Evo, you can easily identify with this, but what I'm going to talk about is something that is probably in a larger scale with, imagine cameras that are planted all over the warehouse and then stitching the data to give one unified view within the warehouse. Okay, I don't know how many of you here, for some of you here that has done ops-room duty, for some of us NS men that serve national service, as I've done duty as a duty supervising officer, I spent 12 years in the Ministry of Defense. And what pleased me the most is to stare at a huge screen with 49 different compartments, pigeonholes of cameras. And what's very intimidating is when someone calls you, your commanding officer calls you and asks you, so tell me, Daniel, do you see anything? Do you see an anomaly? I say, sir, I don't really know. I don't have AI kind of a brain that I can tell you whether that, okay, this particular screen number 1, camera 23 is showing something anomalous. And that's very difficult. But what if we could use digital twin with computer vision? What you want to have is a unified view. So instead of just stitching the camera footages together, what if you could render into a 3D environment and then be able to look at it in a unified way with a bird's eye view, helicopter vision, and then you'll be able to see and drill down to each specific cargo that you are interested in. So in this particular case, we have done it for a company, a cocoa trading company, where we help them to track the cargo down to the pallet level and which specific batch or lot it belongs to. All with the goal of facilitating trade financing. So you might be asking, Daniel, what is the problem that you're trying to solve here with DTW? What we are trying to solve is an industry, multifaceted industry challenge. So, for example, for the banks and financial institutions, your question might be, how do I mitigate, how do I know that the person that I'm financing is legitimate? How do I know whether the collateral that I'm taking on is real? How do I know whether the declaration is accurate or whether is it false? For cargo owners, you are frequently asked, where is my cargo? Where is the asset? When did it leave the warehouse? For customs authorities, we are asking, how do I know that the bonded cargo is still in the bonded cargo warehouse? Was there an attempt to evade tax for a particular batch of bonded cargo? Who has entered the warehouse and when did that happen? For traders, cocoa traders, coffee bean traders, they'll be asking, how can I verify that the warehouse operator has received or delivered the goods? How do I ensure that the cargo weight loss is due to environmental factors or not due to human factors? How can I ensure that this IoT information seamlessly is sent and transmitted to other stakeholders such as my trade financiers, the banks, and without having to send incessant emails? I know you are, why just now Tony talked about fighting fire, and I was thinking about how I fight fire with all those emails that are coming in with multiple attachments, Excel files, and the incessant WhatsApp messages that are flying around. And it's easy to be overwhelmed by with all this information overload. I'm sure you all agree with me. So this begs the question, can there be a different approach when it comes to managing cargo assets and bulk storage within a given space? What if we could track our cargo and assets frame by frame? This unlocks a new level of security and surveillance within a warehouse. And the best part is that you can do it remotely, anytime, anywhere. With DTW, it will transform the way we approach managing bulk storage within a given space, with each asset captured tracked frame by frame. This unlocks a new level of surveillance within a warehouse or a given space, and you can do this remotely. So either with computer vision, it will be easier for the cargo owner or custodian to answer questions like, where's my cargo? When did it enter the warehouse? When was it moved around within the warehouse? And when it leaves the warehouse? So with DTW, geofencing or zoning is made possible. We can define the geozones within a confined space, and with that, you can generate alert notifications when a cargo asset is moved out of a defined space within that warehouse, and these events can be captured in an audit log. So now this brings me to my next part. Can we take this further apart from digital twin? Because sometimes we know that digital twin may not be suitable for certain SMEs because of a cost. Or sometimes, if you want to do digital twin, you need to have cameras. But what if it leaves the warehouse, and can it be coupled with other technologies? And that brings me to my next section, which is on Internet of Things. And I'll be highlighting 3 technologies, which is GPS, RFID, and BLE, some of which you guys are already quite familiar with. But let me give you real case studies, or rather use cases. So in the case of GPS technology, this is one of the successful cases that I was involved in with the National Petroleum Authority in Ghana. Their biggest problems statement is this. They have over 4,000 bulk road vehicles. They call it BRVs, but in Singapore's context, you might call it oil tankers. They have about 4,000 of these vehicles traveling across the country delivering petroleum products. So you think about your unleaded 95, unleaded 92, diesel, yada yada, traveling across the entire country, across more than 3,000 retail outlets. In Singapore's context, we call it petrol stations or petrol kiosks. Now the thing is this, they tend to have this issue where they will deviate from a certain route and they will go somewhere else and they will siphon the oil, siphon the petroleum product. It's sold on the black market, or sometimes they open up the valve, they adulterate the product gets adulterated. So the problem is that high-value petroleum and gas assets, when you're dealing with cross-border operations, right? This is one of the things that they really, really wanted to solve. The National Petroleum Authority needed technology to see how they can resolve this problem. So the solution that they found was that they needed to find a way to be able to use seals, electronic seals, to be able to lock every valve and to know whether it was sealed or unsealed within designated geozones. And with this solution, the electronic cargo tracking system that I was involved in, it gave them visibility for all their bulk road vehicles nationwide, securing the transportation of petroleum, accumulatively worth more than $2.2 billion since April 2021. And this has resulted in a lot of cost savings for them. And how they do that is this. Every transporter that is doing a successful delivery, they finish the milk run, they call it milk runs, and they will actually submit their transport claims to an NPA. What happens is that there is a tamper alert. So what happens is that the NPA knows that there's a tamper alert, they will not approve the transport claim. So there were a lot of, basically, out of, let's say, 1,000 trips that happen a day, you get at least 20% with tamper alerts. They reduce a lot. They basically saved a lot of money in terms of the transport claims. And some of them tried to take them to court. We provided them some of these screenshots of where the tamper alerts happen with satellite view. And it was visible in court. Okay, I'll speed up a bit. Next one, I want to talk about RFID. Maybe I'll go through very quickly. But in this particular case, when I was working with Akimi Uchi or Ideco, one of their biggest issue was manual stock taking. And they were very reliant. Some of you might be wondering, Daniel, isn't there a point of sale system? Why can't we just use the point of sale system? So in this particular case, when you're dealing with retail departmental stores such as Takashimaya or Robinsons, right? The point of sale system doesn't come from me. So if I'm company ABC, I don't own the point of sales. It is always the departmental store that provides that point of sales. And they had this funny process whereby they only do a consolidation of the sales transaction or the volume transactions at the end of the month. But sometimes management is very impatient. Or typical Singaporean companies, they say, I want it here, right now, I want it yesterday. So in this case, what we provided for them was a RFID solution. We're just using a handheld scanner. At the start of the day, you do a scan. At the end of the day, you do another scan. And the handheld scanner is just paired with a mobile phone, with a mobile app that we developed. And they were able to do the stock taking. And from that data, you're able to derive the dollars and cents in terms of the transaction. You're able to know what is the volume transaction per SKU, per unit. And with artificial intelligence, machine learning, we were able to do demand forecasting down to the product level. Okay, I'm reaching last part. Okay, now I want to switch over to Bluetooth low energy devices. The use case here, we're talking about the construction industry. I'll share very quickly what is the big problem statement that the construction industry is facing. Daniel, I cannot find my precast, otherwise known as prefabricated concrete products. Can you imagine a prefabricated concrete that is the size maybe half of this room, or maybe a quarter of this space? It can get lost in a project site. I find it very funny. The CEO was sharing with us that he sometimes has to fly a drone to try to find this huge Lego block that you cannot find. It's very interesting. So he said that Daniel, CK is my CEO. He said we need to find a better solution. I want to just open up a dashboard or a screen and I know exactly where it is on the map instead of flying my drone around. So what we did is that we came out with a BLE mesh system. I think some of you might be familiar with it. So it looks like this round tag that you see that we put on the rebar, reinforced bar. And the next problem statement is that, Daniel, I don't know whether my workers are working productively. Sometimes for some of us, when we drive along the road, you see construction workers or migrant workers, you can have 7 guys staring at one guy pulling a cable. So that's clustering, okay? So what we did is that, okay, for safety purposes, and this was during the COVID period, so we were able to put this there. It helped them with contact tracing as well as tracking of their productivity. So with that, we were able to track worker productivity. We were able to help them track where their precast is. They were able to know when it left the precast factory, when it entered the project site, and when it's in the project site, where exactly it is, to know in terms of the grid, which grid line they're at, which row, which column, and which level. So those are a bit more technical. With BLE Mesh, it's not about the XY coordinates, it gives you the Z coordinates as well. With that, what we did is we took the data, we put it into a BIM model, and facilitated collaboration at a much more granular level. Discussions amongst project managers and engineers were much more meaningful because with the BIM model, they could exactly know where the precast was in a 3D way. And also they were asked, where are my bar benders, where is the general worker, where is the carpenter, where will they tend to isolate or where they tend to cluster at a particular point in time of the day. We will be able to tell where exactly they are. In another context, BLE can be used for nestiness. How many of you know the term nestiness here? Show hands. Not many people know. So we had a use case. We went to Indonesia and we found an Indonesian warehouse operator. He said, Daniel, I have a big problem. I don't know where my nestiness are and they tend to get mixed up. A nestiness is just a shelving system whereby you can put regular objects and parcels and you pack them together and then you move them and they are stackable. After a while, they lose track of where the nestiness are. So what we did is put in this locator tag. If you mesh up the area with, let's say, a locator node powered by AA batteries, 4 AA batteries, one locator node can last about 5 to 10 years, depending on how you set the optimization, configuration settings. And if you load a tag for every nestina, we did this whole thing. We placed about 10 of these locator nodes, and we tried to locate 10 nestinas. This was done in 2 hours together with the software layer. So it was a very quick proof of concept to the warehouse operators. And some of you might be wondering, Daniel, what if we took GPS technology and BLE technology and combine them together? And that's what FairPrice did. So we don't just track the trucks. We can actually use GPS technology to track the trucks. But if, let's say, you want to know the condition of the cargo that you're delivering in terms of humidity, temperature, we use these products. This Bluetooth low energy sensors that is able to interact with the GPS tracker that is loaded in the front, the truck head of the vehicle. We were able to take real-time data and then be able to visualize it on a business intelligence dashboard. The problem statement that we are trying to solve is is multifaceted. Number one is that they wanted to know whether their drivers or they had working with a group of people, a syndicate, or whether they were they were stealing some of the gardenia breads within the trucks when it is going en route to all the different delivery points and different drop-off points. Apart from fleet management, okay, I just also want to share with you all that when it comes to security surveillance, right, I think increasingly we are starting to see that there is an overlap or a slant towards ESG, environmental, social governance. So in the area of sustainability, if you're able to get IoT data pertaining to mileage as well as fuel consumption data, actually you can enhance your supply chain visibility in terms of your carbon footprint reporting, in terms of your scope 1, scope 2, scope 3, whether is it an ICE vehicle or electric vehicle. Now, I'm reaching the end already, which is, I just want to share some lessons learned when it comes to some of these IoT solutions. I think it's very important that when we try to talk to our colleagues, different stakeholders, it's important to tie the project objectives to the dollars and cents. You need to be able to clearly articulate your problem statements so that management will be able to understand why we're doing this. And just like what Tony was sharing with us, that people usually resist change because they don't see the point. Ivo was also talking about how they didn't see the need for it until you show it to them that this can really save money in the long term. So somehow, from the get-go, we have to tie it to a problem such as man hours, utilization rate, and what's the output rate. We have to do it. Sometimes we have to do a small proof of concept at our own expense to show it that actually it is possible. But after the project, if this is even more important, you have to tie it back to the objectives, which is, I know this is a given, but I'm just reiterating it, that we had to show them on a business intelligence dashboard how man-hour savings was evident, how productivity has increased, how we help them to save overhead costs, and also what was the risk that they managed to mitigate. In the case, I just want to say a particular, this one I got permission from the customer to say. In Olam's case, Olam is a cocoa trader. They were able to now pinpoint the weight variances because therefore, one of their problem statements was this: I can have 25 tons of cocoa beans moving from Ghana to Pasir Gudang in Malaysia. From the time it goes from Pasir Gudang and is delivered to Singapore's processing plant, 25 tons becomes 24 tons. You're losing 1 ton of cocoa beans. Where did it go? They couldn't tie it down to a particular pallet. They were only able to tie it down to a particular lot. A lot is maybe a few tons. That's very hard to attribute the cost, to find the root cause. And what we were able to do for them is that we were able to track down, using RFID technology, we were able to find the weight variances down to a particular pallet. And then what we found out is that it's got to do with human behavior. We found out that for that particular lot, and they were able to pull out their CCTV footages to see that certain bags were torn. I leave the rest to you. I will not say anything more. Who did it? We don't know. Okay. And last but not least, I just want to share that when it comes to implementation, I think what we need is that the project owner, the product owner, process owners must be clearly identified by management. Rules and responsibilities are clearly defined, and relevant stakeholders need to be around and committed for this. And I think what I want to say is that what helps a lot is don't underestimate the power of alcohol. Sometimes when you want to get things going, sometimes you can discuss it over beer or, I don't know, any drinks or beverage. Maybe to my Muslim friends, maybe that is taboo, but sometimes over a meal can help to ease things off and help to to help you to navigate the bottlenecks for some of these problems. Another thing is this: we always face project implementation fatigue. So what helps a lot is that as project leaders, what we need to do is to always keep the eye on the ball, keep our eye on the big picture. So we know that digital transformation can be a daunting task, but I just want to leave you with this quote. Okay, the journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step. In Chinese, we say 一步一步来, just take one step at a time. If there's a need for beer, alcohol, or over a meal, just use whatever helps to get you one step forward in your digital transformation journey. Thank you for your time. Yeah, back to you, Madam. Thank you very much.
That was quite an insight on the implementation part. So before we break out, we have one more presenter for the day. Now we are going to complete towards the end of the journey in terms of a presentation. So we're going to have a topic on strengthening supply chain through digitalization and closing the financing gap. This is something which is very interesting. So I would like to welcome Mr. Sunil Senapati, CEO, XCC Trade Network, to help us walk through this amazing title. Thank you.
Great. First, thanks to TAPA for arranging such a nice venue, and what a interesting set of speakers so far we have had. I'm sure you guys have been having a bit of a fatigue in terms of so much is coming. So I'll try to make it as much interesting as possible. And of course, I'm between the nicer networking session and Q&A session. I've had the pleasure of working with large companies like Oracle, SAP, and I've done many transformation projects. I would like to start with Tony spoke about what was there in 2000, what is there in 2023. When we look at solution implementation, we have to look at it in a functionality perspective. What happens inside your organization, and even inside your organization, you have multiple departments. And then you start interacting with your vendors. And then you start interacting with many authorities with whom you work, and third parties you work, because you offload some work to third parties. Now, there are different systems used for different type of functionality you are using. These days, I would say the technology has really advanced to a level where all of this application doesn't necessarily have to come from one vendor. You could pick and choose something which works for your internal planning, which is ERP. You could use something else for customer management, which is CRM. You could manage something else for your logistics. So without much ado, let me just dive into who we are and what we do. We are a local company in Singapore. So let me just dwell into what is happening in global supply chain. All right. I'm sure all of you are aware. There's so much paper used. we are party to it. We love our paper because when the paper is presented to us, we feel, okay, this is genuine. This is a seal. This is a sign, and a seal is there, which means it is interesting. Okay, but some numbers to highlight. 45 million bills of lading. That's a lot of paper, right? Not to mention they are, going through courier. They may get lost. They may get delayed, and then the side effects. Higher trade compliance cost. All right, let me just make someone understand what exactly that is. When a paper is presented to anybody, in a process of life cycle of a logistics process, document move from one party to another. Now, when a receiving party gets a document, how do they actually validate the data in that paper document? How do you validate? There's no way for you to verify. When you present the document to bank will have to necessarily call up somebody and check if the data is genuine. Sometimes bank has to pay as high as £100 to verify a set of documents. Now, who is paying for that? The shipper is paying for it, or the party who is consignee is paying for it. Now, this is very high. Something needs to be done. Use the lovely technology we just saw the use cases so far. All of that can actually fix that. This is something which hits SMEs very hard. Banks usually would like to finance the larger companies because they have a nice balance sheet. But what about a trader who doesn't have a great balance sheet but have actual good shipment and he needs a shipment, post-shipment financing? So this is a figure announced by ADB, which is for 2022, the gap was $2.5 trillion. Now that's a lot of money, all right? So where are we going now? Because those are big problems. So there's some information here which you might have again heard, but very interesting progress right now we're having. So this 5-letter word, MLETR, milliliter we call it, it is Model Law for Electronic Transferable Record. Now, the regulators from many countries are coming together and looking at how do we start using electronic documents to clear our cargo. Now, this is not something new. There is electronic clearance happening for last 25 years now, but 8 countries have come together now. Of course, Singapore is one of them, to actually send and receive and clear cargo based on electronic trade documents. Now, electronic trade documents can be your bill of lading, your certificate of origin, your invoices, and so on. Now, these documents are created by different parties. Now, it's very important that all these parties, those who are creating, needs to start creating them electronic. So remember, I told you in the beginning, different systems are getting used by different parties. How do they all come to one particular system and create a bill of lading or certificate of origin? So the industry is getting there, but these are all very positives. There are many countries. UK signing this was very, very welcoming. This happened only in September. And Germany, France, all in advanced stage. Should be beginning of 2024. We will have these countries also accepting electronic documents for clearing cargo. There are many trade bodies which are being formed to push the usage of electronic trade documents. Now, this is a very nice commitment from 9 largest shipping companies, which has committed that by 2030, they will issue 100% EBM. Now, that's really interesting. Now, for those of you, those who are into exporting your product or importing anything, this is very, very relevant. Okay. So, milliliter, I explained, there's a new word called trade trust. All right. So, if you just see here, trade trust is a digital framework, again, created by our good friend from IMDA. Now, this is a world standard created in Singapore, and now we are helping other countries to start adopting this, because this milliliter requirements are addressed by trade trust. So what basically trade trust does, it allows a company to create an electronic document, save the electronic document, and also endorse and transfer the electronic documents, which we usually do in any exporting country. Any document which you send it to your counterparties while you're doing business, you actually move a paper document to them. In electronic, you would be doing the same thing. When you receive the document, then you do your endorsement and send it to the next party. We do the same thing using trade trust as an utility. There's a lot happening behind the scene. In the interest of time, I will not explain all of that, but just remember, this is something which we have created in Singapore and we are taking to the world. So, okay, so what is HTC Trade Network doing? So there are 2 things we do. One, we help to digitize the entire trade documents. So that's the first thing. So you have to get away from your paper. You can start creating electronic documents. The second, remember $2.5 trillion of trade deficit. You are not getting capital. You could use these electronic documents and get your financing. Because electronic documents are easy to verify now, it becomes easier for liquidity providers to take possession of this document and you get liquidity for it. Now that's a super incentive for going digital. So if you're an SME, you haven't started using a digital electronic bill of lading and so on, talk to us. We'll help you get started. Of course, we have limitation of dealing with only 8 countries who are accepting electronic documents, but hey, other countries are coming soon as well. So what we did, how are we using the utility which IMDA has created? So XDC network is actually a blockchain network where we have integrated these tools, and then with that we have created an application. So if I just use a flow, it'll be easier. And there are benefits which I'll come to later. Let me just show you how exactly the flow works. All right. This flow is very simple. There are 2 key functions this solution has. One is a documentation layer where you create all the documents. And this is the financing layer where you get finance based on these documents. So a shipper creates a set of documents. And of course, he has a carrier who's creating bill of lading. You have a chamber which gives you other certificates and inspection and so on. Now, all these parties will create their documents on our application. If they have their existing application on which they are creating these documents, we do API connectivity here so that data as source is digitized and stored in Trade Trust. Now, it is stored here for anybody to verify. Now what happens, the shipper gives the document to his next party to whom they are selling. The party which receives the document basically can verify with Trade Trust if the document is all as per they are created in source in the beginning. So that way the whole trade process moves from one party to another. Now if there is a need for capital, the shipper has to just go in and request for capital, provide the reference of the document. And with those reference, liquidity provider would check if the documents are original, are they indeed in the name of the party which is requesting liquidity. This verification layer is where beautifully rest of the technology which we heard until now is used. We spoke about ESG data. How do you know as a liquidity provider if the ship used is not emitting too much of carbon? You get your shipping data from here. You get legal entity identifier here to know that if this company is indeed ABC, which is being mentioned in bill of lading, so on. So all the data verification happens here. Once the liquidity provider is happy with all the data being presented to them, then the movement of document happens and the money moves from liquidity provider to the shipper. So this is what, in a nutshell, our solution does. Apart from this, there are, many other benefits which we saw in other use cases as well. Easy to trace. We can lower the risk because insurance is high because there are a lot of risk perceived. Now, if you can provide IoT-based information, if you can provide the cargo is indeed coming from A to B and without interruption is flowing from one place to another, there are many things which can be provided so that the premiums can come down. We obviously have the benefit of using faster way of moving information. There's no paper involved. So there you save as high as 20% as per IBM study. Then there are many other benefits this solution has. So in the interest of time, I would stop here and very happy to take your questions during the break and in the later part of the discussion. Thank you.
Looks like we're all set. So, once again, thank you all for staying back, and I hope you all had a good break. And thank you also for the participants online. We're going to have a very interesting question and answer sessions. So, as I told you earlier, Tony, who's been my boss and my kind of a mentor for the last few months, close to a year now, I've learned a lot of cues from him. So, I'm going to throw in Indian cricket, or in the cricket language, we call it as a googly, the curved ball. So let me attempt it onto my boss now first, right? So okay, we are all industry experts, and we definitely don't need to be prepared in advance. So we are also open to questions from the audience. It's going to be a very interactive one, and we'll make it sharp at the same time sweet, to the point. We also will be having a few questions online, some kind of an engagement so that your questions and your doubts could be clarified by the experts here. So let me first of all say something about myself. I think I missed it when I started the session, isn't it? Okay. My name is Madhu Lokan. I'm the Executive Director of TAPA in Asia Pacific. I'm supported by a great team who's present here. Without the team, nothing happens. And not to miss, without the empowerment given by Tony and the board, I don't think we would have done whatever we are doing today. And we got a very, very impressive growth progress, which we have achieved in 2023. Thanks to all our members in TAPA and also our partners, our premier partners, and also to all the industries and the bodies. We also will have an explosive growth in 2024 and 2025 under the current leadership of the board, for which Tony is our chairman. So that's a little bit about TAPA and where we are heading in Asia Pacific. Now, the question is that on this seminar, we're talking about AI and transformation, right? So let me quickly connect the topics that we have gone through and to the questions that we have got for the panelists here. There's a lot of questions coming up. That's good. Let me put the first questions here. Everybody knows about the concepts, the implementation part, etc. The important is that where is the ROI, right? So the first question that I would like to pose here is that what efficiencies or improvements have been achieved through digitalization, and how long after can a company expect the ROI? So can I request Tony to add a few words to this, please?
Thank you, Madhu. Have you noticed how kind he's been to me today? You noticed that, yeah?
In public, right?
Yeah, in public. So I checked the watch and I realised it's coming up to bonus time. So now I know why he's been so nice to me. So look, it's a very good question. So remember what I was telling you in terms of my digital transformation journey. For me, the ROI was very fast. It was very fast because what I did, I looked at what I was going to try to achieve. So I think it was Danny, correct? Daniel. Yeah, Daniel. Sorry. That highlighted the fact that you must outline your what your expectations are in the first place, and then you should be able to measure those. Now, a lot of people have issues around trying to work out what the cost is, and it could be that if you look at the cost of a photocopy machine, do you measure every single piece of paper that you print? It's not just the cost of the paper, it's the cost of the machine, it's the cost of the ink, etc. But also it's the time taken to walk down to that copy machine and do that processing, all right? So there's a lot of waiting time, things like that. So when you start to actually cost things out, you may only be saving, $2 or $3 per line item. But when you accumulate that actually turns out to be a lot of money. And then when you multiply that by a monthly cost and then the annual cost, and if you look at your amortization period, if you're doing it over 3 years, that is a significant saving. Now, also the loss of opportunity cost. Loss of opportunity cost in the sense that if that person isn't wasting time doing manual data entry work or that waiting time, if that work is then transformed into doing more productive work for the business, then that should also be added into your ROI. Now, when you start doing it and you start looking at it in that way, and certainly I think with PSG grants, with IMDA grants, etc., if you're able to lay that out, it's easy for the officer to say, okay, I can see an obvious ROI there. And then where there are grants, and you're very lucky in Singapore to have this funding that you have. I always say use it to get to your next level. Use the grants to skill your people up, because they are there, right? Those transformation grants are there to use that skilling up. So ROI should come back very, very fast.
Thank you, Tony. Yeah, definitely. I also wanted Sunil to share
a little bit on this particular topic, because I know that in Sunil's presentation, there were some points that he also shared during the break, some excellent tips. So I would like Sunil to share to the audience today, please. Sure. Sorry, I have to request the mic to be passed on.
See, when you are digitizing trade documents and sending it across whichever location you are trading with, there is an instant ROI. I will just take maybe 2-3 points which will give you an idea. So in my slides, I spoke about around about 20% of transportation cost is actually spent on sending the digital trade documents. So that's a clear benefit there. Plus, we cannot actually calculate every paper which we copy, because there is an opportunity loss if the document doesn't reach the discharge port. Imagine there is a demurrage charge you are paying because you haven't received the courier, and the port is charging you whatever they have to, and you incur further losses by not keeping your commitment to deliver the goods to your party to whom you have to deliver. So there is a cascade effect. So it's a huge business cost by doing it in an old manner. So that's one. Second, as I said, SMEs don't even get funding. See, you don't do that many trades because your lines are fully consumed. Whatever letter of credit your banks have given you, you're over-exhausted them. What if you don't have that problem anymore? If you have a trade, you get funding. Because these are digital documents, can be easily verified, there are parties to fund you. So, ROI, when you're going digital, you really don't have to look forward. These are 2-3 points I said. I could just go on and take the whole evening where all you could save money. And to make it much better, we have IMDA who is helping you get started as well. So why not? Thank you.
Thank you.
Since we mentioned so much, I just thought I'll add a bit of data points. Government, right? Everything is data. So as Sunil shared, we do have our grant schemes, and we actually measure then what is the productivity gain, right, by companies that have adopted it. And for the logistics sector, we have seen that the ROI, or the productivity gain, is between 35 to 60% just by adopting very basic solution, your warehouse management, transport management solutions. And over time, we've also measured, right, as the Ministry of Trade Industry, MTI, they do these longitudinal studies. And there's always a measure of value add to the company that have adopted the digital solutions. And so across all sectors, there's a real 4% gain of value add per worker, right, just through digitization. And this is through economic, crunching of data. So there's really real long-term gain as well, right? Clear gain. 4% might not seem a lot, but if it stacks up and is real value add per worker, not just on the whole business. I mean, there's also definite revenue gain from digitization. So think about 35 to 60% productivity, 4% on real value added per worker. I think these are just good numbers that you can all take and think about. Thanks.
Thank you, Andy. We also have Evo to share a few points on this one.
I think indeed, like a lot of technology solutions have indeed like a positive ROI, but I think I want to make one counter, because it really also depends on if you properly implement your technology. And oftentimes technology is seen as a magic bullet, and you just go to a technology provider and they solve everything for you. We can do a lot, but we cannot do everything. And we are not running your business, right? We're supporting you. And oftentimes when there is change going on within a business, ROI at the beginning might actually not be there, because you need to get used to this new way of working, to this new technology. And I think it's very, very important also with respect to change management, which I think is the most important part of technology implementation. The people part is to also do a lot of expectation management to your users, to the leadership. Say like, okay, maybe at the beginning it will be tough. Maybe at the beginning you will see negative effects from technology, but think of the longer term and make sure that you take all steps to make sure that the technology project can become successful, and then you will reap the benefits, but don't expect it immediately.
That's very, very true, Ivo. So we also have Ian from Scala to add his expertise and experiences in this one. Yeah?
So firstly, thank you, TAPA and Tony, for this invitation to come and join the panel here. And I think it's great to see a whole snapshot of the different end-to-end value chain aspects of digitalization. And Ivo, you touched on a very important point about the people and how the people have to be ready even before we talk about the technology. The technology is probably the end part of the whole transformation, because if the business is not ready, if the management is not ready, if the people are not ready, you can plug in a beautiful solution at the end part of it, but it's not going to take off. As you said, then the Excel spreadsheet comes back online, right? And you're going to take up that one. And this is where in Scala we come in. So we have IMDA who does the technology grants. Scala we work with, and we are the program partners with Workforce Singapore that does the grants for the people. So then we can actually, when we combine the grants for the technology solution, for the people and the change management and the business redesign element from our career conversion programs. And by the way, the career conversion programs are really looking at how we fund it is so long as you have technology that you want to put in place, and there will be people who need to reskill. And that's what we mentioned as well. You need to learn how to use these things. Then they are impacted, their jobs are impacted, the way they work are impacted. Then WSG comes in, we come in and we look at it, and we can start to fund the training, the transition. And so for a period of 3 months, for all the people who are impacted by that, then there's funding. So now there's funding in many, many areas, not just the technology area as well, but also the people area, which you mentioned so rightly. Thank you.
Thank you, Ed, and thank you, Ivo, Andy, as well as Tony. Lots of inputs and nuggets. Meanwhile, we also asked a similar question to this line to the audience. We got some good responses here. So what we see here is that obviously the ROI within 1 to 3 years is what the expectations are from the survey which we got. But obviously, as rightly mentioned, the ROI is not just the money part, right? It's also upskilling your workforce. It's also having the things laid out in advance so that when you really kick into your implementation, you could see the transformation happening. That is also an ROI, right? So from where you were to where you are and where you are heading to. That's wonderful. All right, let's ask one more question to the audience here. So, what's your most concerned challenge when implementing new technologies? Now, we're not going to implementation stage. So the audience over here and the audience online, you could scan the QR code and give your answers. So meanwhile, I have this question posed to the panel while we get the answers. So the question to the panel is that, could you share what are the common challenges faced by companies in the adoption of AI technologies in the supply chain, and how can they resolve these challenges? We're talking of adoption in the workplace and the challenges and how this could be resolved. So, who would like to take this? I can throw a curved ball, but let me give the opportunity to
let me start.
All right.
So another very good question. Look, my experience, and I touched on it during the presentation, is that when you go on this journey, the resistance to change is great. You remember that just from the poll in the audience here, we saw a number of hands going up. And actually, everyone who had done a digital transformation project, I think it was the same hands up for the issue around people. And again, look, going back to, and I want to labour it, right, and going back to that point, if you don't skill up your people, if you don't get them ready for that technology change, the whole project will fail. And many of you have done, you've been to business schools, you've seen that change management process, right? And I always lecture about this change management process. We get some buy-in here, and as we get up to the top of the curve, people start getting nervous. People start asking questions. And look, if we prepare properly, that could just be a slight dip in that change management process. And if we don't prepare, that's going to be a V shape. And once that's a V shape, that person who started the whole project off is probably going to leave that company. And that's unfortunately the significance of it. And that's why the preparation has got to be there. You've got to sit down with your HR partners and say to them, right, this is what we want to do. And I was just talking to HR from Toll, because if we're not prepared for it, we're going to have a major problem. The next thing, remember I said, do that risk assessment. That risk assessment will point out all of the problems that you're going to face. And if you label all of those and you have an action plan to address all of those, right, your problem will be much smoother. It means that your transformation project will be like this. You'll have a slight dip rather than that big V. And that big V down the bottom is chaos. That's conflict within the organisation. And that organisational change, right, is going to end up, with either you or some of your team being the lamb to the slaughter as such. So the proper preparation and gearing people up to get the right expectations is key.
Thank you, Tony. That was very, very clear. Anybody else who would like to take this?
Maybe I'll offer my views on this.
Yeah.
Looking at this question, right, you can look at it from two different perspectives. I think what Tony shared, it sounded to me is more from the employee perspective. Yes, when you're dealing with large corporate organizations, I think the fear is that there's resistance to change, inertia. You're dealing with people who are turf guarding. Yes, proper communication is needed. Just to add on a little bit more, what I see from bureaucratic organizations is that sometimes it has to be top driven. The top leader and middle managers need to provide direction. They need to show commitment to see through the changes that is related to digital transformation. More often what I observe personally, sometimes there's fatigue and then they go back to firefighting. I think all of us experience that. So when people go back to firefighting, then where's the push? Everyone in business school knows about the Cotter's 8 steps change, but halfway through, come to the 3rd and 4th step, people lose gas on that. So I think leadership is very important. Down to the middle line managers, they have to push through. Now, the other perspective that I'd like to offer is from the employer perspective, because I was looking at the poll results, choosing the right technology to adopt and cost of adoption are the top 2 reasons. Actually, I would say the first and the second one can be lumped together. Usually when employers are thinking whether is it the right solutions, usually the dollars and cents is embedded inside the first question, is it the right technology? So I would say that what is the solution to overcome this problem is, again, if I were an employee trying to convince the employer to adopt the technology, I think we have to present both the pain and the gain. People respond to pain, some people respond to gain. So the gains are usually, that's where IMD comes in. Hey, don't worry, there's grants. We can help you offset the capital expenditure. OPEX, we will settle that later. If we are able to settle the immediate pains and boost productivity with that extra 4%, 5%, 10%, and we stack it all up, then we can chase after other business opportunities, or we can redirect our workforce to something that is higher value and then bring in more revenue streams to the business. Another okay, so then there's gain. There's the area of pain. Sometimes we need to tell the bosses that if you spend this much, another 100K, you're basically solving a $1 million per year problem. I mean, that's how I would pitch it. And we have done that for some of the trading companies. Sometimes we don't even need to tell them the pain. They already know the pain. Say, Daniel, I need a Tylenol. I need ibuprofen to solve this problem. And I don't mean it literally in drug form. But once they implement, let's say, a simple RFID technology, not even computer vision, they see the benefits within the first 2 months, and they are able to identify the root problem. Most of the time, interestingly, you boil it down to a human problem. Yeah, that's all I have.
Very well clarified, Daniel. Really appreciate, because from the question and then the way you answered, also from the feedback what we got, I think that's correct. I mean, the biggest challenge is that when you say that it's true, when the management is not very clear, or the leadership is not very clear, that's the first problem, and that's definitely a challenge. The second challenge is that they may be clear, but as rightly mentioned, which technology to choose, right? And then the dollars and cents are somehow embedded into that. So that needs to be articulated also very well. I think your answer gave a lot of clarity in how this needs to be handled from the top, and also how the middle management need to embrace to move forward and keep pushing it. That's great. Any other inputs from the team here? Would like to add on to that, Andy?
Just a quick one. Sorry. We have spoken to a lot of SMEs in recent times, and we want to understand, the biggest problems, right, with implementing technology. And our grant schemes last for a year. So if you say you want ROI in 3 years, then we need to know, okay, so are we really solving a longer term problem? And then they tell us, no, we're not. And we go, why? And they said, because we can start quickly, but over time I need things that's better, more integrated, more complex. So when I start my journey, if I can rewind my decision, I will have looked for not just the cheapest, not just the quickest, not just the fastest ROI. I need to think a little bit more midterm, because I'm going to reach a point where I say, okay, now that this part it's automated, this part works, I actually need to integrate with that system. And if my thing is standalone and they say it's going to be custom to actually integrate, that cost very quickly snowball. So thinking a bit more about the long-term implication of taking on technology and paying a bit of premium if there is real intention to connect and automate your whole operation, I think that's key also. So that is also something that a lot of SMEs have brought up, that you should take note of.
Thank you for that, and I really appreciate it. That stance was very clear in terms of the expectations and the results. Yeah, that's great. All right, so let me move on to the next question. Got a few more, but in interest of time, maybe I'll ask only one or two. So let's keep it going. What strategies or best practices are employed to ensure a smooth transition for the technology adoption? So as we all heard during the presentation, right, the biggest resistance is the change resistance, right? So what could be the best practices or the strategies that could be employed for technology adoption? I would like to start with Daniel, because we have some interesting case studies where we have demonstrated and also shown, right? There are results. So we should throw some lights on this, please.
Okay, I think what helps a lot in my personal experience is, number one, it all starts with communication. I run a project management team in my company, and I always tell them 90% of your work is communication. You need to communicate it well, starting from the kickoff session, because the kickoff session is where you are presenting to your key stakeholders, the customer, or even the customer of the customer. You tell them that this is the problem statement, and this is how we are going to measure the success as the project goes along. So I think communication is very important before, during, and after the project closes. In terms of change management, so this is another strategy. When it comes to change management, you need to identify the correct stakeholders. this is a bit of a power play. One thing I've noticed is that if you don't identify the correct key stakeholders to influence the rest of the key people in the organization, it's going to fall flat. No one is going to say that, yes, I believe this system works. I think what helps a lot is that when you've identified the key champion people, those who are sitting in the right position with a loud speaker, then I think it is much easier to see the ROIs come in. Training and support. The next one is training and support. So hand-holding is very important. This is where I think the vendor, the supplier of the technology, together with the product owner, is very important. We need to hand-hold them a bit. We have to bring them through the process. So this part is the most painful for any project manager or service delivery personnel, but we just have to, for me, it's just bite the bullet and push it through sometimes. Last but not least is celebrate quick wins. I realize that if we don't make time to celebrate quick wins with your own project team or even with the key stakeholders, right, fatigue tends to set in very quickly. Yeah. Who else would like to answer?
No, I like that. When you said celebrate quick wins, I remember Tony who's been telling us, and after every small action that we do, we think it is small, but if you really take a step back and see the impact it has created, the transformation that has happened, that's huge. So if you don't recognize it and celebrate it, then you're going to get into that run-of-the-mill type, and you do not know where you are and what you are, then run like headless chicken all around the place, right? So that's a very important point to take it. I really like that, appreciate.
Sometimes you don't need to make it a big fanfare. Yeah. Sometimes some pizza, some chicken wing, some drinks helps a lot.
That's true. I like the last part, the drink. So all right, thanks. Okay, anybody else would like to say?
Yeah. So look, I would always say, when you start these projects off, obviously the assumption is that you always have that buy-in from management. If you haven't, to do that ground upwards is extremely difficult. But before you go into the boardroom and get it signed off, drinks would be nice. Go and have a cup of tea or a cup of coffee with all your stakeholders. Yeah. Sit down and engage them, and tell them what the benefits are. Tell them what the expectations are, and tell them what your expectations are, and also understand theirs. Understand some of their challenges, reassure them. And once you've got buy-in from everybody, then take it into the boardroom. Because then when you take it into the boardroom, you're going to have a smooth discussion. And everyone will sign off. And once you have that sign-off, that's it. It's done. That's where you sit down with your HR partners to make sure it's communicated out correctly. And it's not just communicated out one. As Daniel said, you've got to communicate all of the wins. So if you have a great win, put it in. If you suddenly have, let's say, for instance, an EDI integration, which is now improve your figures, reduce data entry issues and things of that nature, tell everybody about it. Celebrate it. Now, during that whole process, there are 4 quadrants, but I like to put them to 3. There are 33% of your company which will be full adopters. They will want to go with it. They can see what it's going to do in the future. You'll have 33% that will want some selling. And you have to do the sell process to them, engage them, etc. And then the rest, the other 33%, will be the people that don't want to change. And they will do everything possible to slow it down, delay it, come up with every single excuse, telling you it's different here. I've flown around the whole world telling me it's different here. It's not different. It's the same across the whole world. Taxi drivers are the same across the whole world. Did you know that? They are. Doesn't matter what country you're in, taxi drivers are the same. So look, you're going to go through those challenges. But the clever thing to do is pick off that 33% of adopters who really want to drive the change. Because when you start to publish the results, the ones that are throwing the anchor into the water and slowing it down will start to show. And then the board will start to question why these people are not making the progress that they should be. So drive it through statistics, drive it through that communication. It's difficult being a project manager. Unfortunately, they get that pushback, and now they've got to escalate that. But make sure you have those clear communication challenges in place, Make sure you document and minute things, because you can always reference back to that. That will always help you in a transformation.
Thank you, Tony. That was really, really great.
It must be bonus time, isn't it?
I was just checking my bank balance, and my finance told me that just wait for one more day, it's going to come in. So thank you, Tony. And thanks for the audience too to support me on this. I really appreciate it. All right, okay.
Drink on you.
No problem at all. All right, thank you. That's great. Okay, in the interest of time, I need to restrict to just one last question. But there's one feedback what I received from the participant online. I mean, Tony, you mentioned about risk assessment standard. The question is that how is that going to help in the technology adoption? So, would you be able to share some light on that?
Sure. Yeah. I'm not going to mention the company's name. It's well documented in the press if you want to search it. But a large freight forwarder went through a technology change. And if you look at technology changes, and if you look at technology failures, they are significant. So you don't need to be some risk assessment scientist to predict that a technology change will fail. And that failure cost them millions, absolute millions. And a friend of mine, he tried to adopt SAP into a Fortune 500 company. Actually, his CFO was the one who championed it. At the time, he was CEO, and he assumed that the CFO had everything in the plan, but the plan wasn't communicated. So suddenly they started to do a SAP implementation, and unfortunately, they turned off their old system. Now, this was a listed company. That listed company could not invoice anybody. Not for 1 week, not for 2, but for several weeks. Now, eventually, they have to report that to the market, because there's the potential is they're not going to be able to invoice, so they're going to have a revenue loss, and that's going to be a share price hit. Now, this could have all been set aside had they done a risk assessment, because in that technology change, the assessment should have been done. Is it the right technology? As Andy said, does it integrate with other systems? If it doesn't, if it's a standalone system that hasn't got what you need for the future, then you've already got a problem. So who were the people doing the assessment on the technology? Did you bring the right people in to do that? As I was saying during the break, sometimes bring the specialist in. You can't always do it yourself. So bring somebody in who can help you, who's done that structured process before. Identify all of the problems. If you identify them straight away, you can solve them. Every problem is solvable. But if I shut my eyes and I just think everything's going to be perfect, it's not. You will fail. And that's why if you use the structured risk assessment process, you will identify these risks. Just think back to COVID. Who had a plan ready for the pandemic? It's only companies like Intel that had a plan. When the Japanese tsunami happened and that power went down, Japan couldn't manufacture. It was Intel share price still going up when competitors were going down. And that's because Intel had a plan. Now, if you look at a risk assessment process, had many companies done a risk assessment, they would have identified, one, that they had no plans for a pandemic. Two, that their supply chain would have been totally compromised in the pandemic. They didn't even have relationships with their partners. That when something happened, they could actually rely on their partners. As we know from the pandemic, it ended up being who was going to pay the most. So what did that do? What did that do for your company, and what did that do for the whole world economy? The shipping lines earned billions out of this, So go back to the risk assessment process, because even during the recovery from the pandemic, look at the supply chain failures. It's astronomical. Look at the cost of it. We're talking in the trillions, not in the millions. So clearly, this is why TAPA adopted the risk assessment standard. And that's why the pickup from the insurance companies has been key. They realise this is going to help them in terms of understanding what the risk is and what they're going to insure. But on the positive side, if you conduct a risk assessment and you've identified all of these risks and you have a structured plan where you show you have TAPA standards and other standards in place to another control mechanism in place to lower that risk, then that's got to be in your favour as well. So use a risk assessment not only to identify the risk but also get other business benefits from it. So the total ROI of it is significant. The failure of an IT project hitting the floor, going into that V, is very high if you don't plan ahead. But if you plan ahead, not only will your transformation curve be a slight dip, but you will also come out highly profitable out the other side.
Thank you, Tony. I think you answered more to the question raised because you also touched on the areas where probably one would miss out. So that's wonderful. I've got one last question. But before that, I want to give a heads up to everybody. I want to request all the panelists to be ready with one key takeaway and one tip for the audience to get started from your respective areas of expertise, whether it is planning or implementation or risk assessment, whichever it is. So it's just one quick 30-second, 1 minute. But before that, I have one last question. And this is to you, Andy. How do you envision AI and 5G technologies reshaping the future of supply chains? Yeah.
Thank you. So the Gen AI hype has, I think, hit every sector, and some sectors have suffered or benefited more. Right? You look at media professional services. The whole idea that AI is replacing very intelligent work that used to be done by very highly paid people to regurgitate information and to create art and media. So that disrupted greatly, right? But when we started to look at the evidence for supply chain, logistics sector, we don't think that the impact of AI, Gen AI, is that huge. We still think that AI is going to be embedded continually into the existing applications. So just make it smarter and smarter and smarter, right? And that still goes back down to whether you as a company have integrated your different data sources to allow the intelligent machine learning models and the analytics models to be ran. So your fundamental business, right, hygiene, is still necessary so that AI can help you. So we think that the implication of AI right now is still at a constant pace. Gen AI could help in some parts. For example, when it comes to very heavy content, maybe it's your documentation that you need more time to look through, maybe to spot certain things that your team might miss. Gen AI could be there to help speed that up, but it will not transform, I think, the industry. And it's really too early as well, right? So I think as even the regulator, we are promoting how you experiment and try out different technologies to really realize long-term gain, and no one knows better right now. And I think but that shouldn't stop you from saying, let's start to at least adopt AI in the right way. 5G, on the other hand, and again, I'm supposed to say, yes, 5G is the big, transformative mobile technology. But I think all of us know it's an advancement. It's an incremental change. But it does bring some benefits. The low latency would help to lower down the chances of perhaps your AGVs or your other machinery to lose connection or to miss a command or to lose a sync with a server that would have sent the right info to stop something from happening. So there would be some benefits because of the benefits of 5G. And we know that there has already been trials undergoing. I think MPA, Marine Port Authority,
has worked with IMDA to deploy 5G network into the coastal areas of Singapore to allow low latency, high throughput communication between vessels and shore. And that's allowing some quicker responses, quicker communications to go on. But we still think that the true benefit of 5G is not just about the latency, it's also about how you allow compute of certain highly complex functions to happen, not back at where you are running your main data centers and so on, but on the edge of the network. And that's one of the benefits of 5G. So linking back to AI, they've always said that 5G allows AI, computational AI, generative AI, very high CPU usage AI to be done much quicker because it's not back at where things are at a data center, but deployed at the node, right, at the edge. So when that really happens, when the AI applications do happen, when all the powerhouse AIs of the world are deployed everywhere, and they need to keep churning different analysis and results from every image and every video out there, and you are at areas where you do not have strong connectivity, and 5G is the only way to reach it, I think then we'll really reap the benefits of 5G. Singapore, unfortunately, we are way too over-connected. Yeah, way. So 4G, would that be sufficient? I think for most cases it will. But at areas where, I think, again, maritime, where it's not so straightforward to get the range, 5G definitely will. Highly built up, underground, 5G will penetrate a lot better. So I do think that supply chain, especially when it goes to every nook and cranny of where we need to go, 5G would be an advantage over time. So again, latency to really help with the critical functions, and of course, ultimately, when AI takes over, the ability to process it closer to the edge and making sure that it's readily available and used at the application, that would be the time where I think 5G AI would really boom.
Thank you, Andy. That's very well explained and connected also. And also you also made a practical connection to where we are and also how this would help on the supply chain side when things become more demanding, as the expectations from the consumer was also very high. Everything needs to be done quick without error, right? So that's wonderful. Thanks for answering that question. So I thought I put a curveball, but you hit a good one. So I'll take it back. Okay, good. Let's go to the conclusion of this panel, and so we'll have a takeaway from each one of the panelists, and then I would like to close the session. So let me start with Ian, please. Ian, what would be your key takeaway and one tip for the audience to get started?
As you know, I come from a different angle. I'm not from the technology angle. I'm actually from the human side and the business angle. And it's always good to hear one of the key things as you want to implement the digitalization and technology transformation. We got to start with the business. We got to start with the strategy. We got to start to think about the risks involved in the change and the people who will be impacted by the change before you start. So be more strategic in implementing your technology rather than going to over the counter and buying the next plug and play. That's my takeaway.
Cross-border trade with digital documents is reality. It is being supported by policy, technology, and standard. The world has got a consensus to it, and it has no prerequisite of what system you use. So it's a new solution which you can just plug and start using it. And it also comes with additional liquidity so that you can do more business. So going digital is only the way forward. Thank you.
I think we no doubt know that AI and other technologies such as IoT can bring potential benefits to all of us. But my key takeaway will be the 2 Ps and 1 D. Pay attention to your people, processes, and your data. Why data? Because like what Tony said, data is your foundation. If you don't get that right, nothing will move. So 2 Ps, 1 D.
I actually agree with Daniel. Maybe I shouldn't add too much. Because a lot of companies are staring blindly at AI, possibilities of AI, but if you don't have the foundations ready, you shouldn't think about AI. You should think about your foundations first. Then you also asked, like, I give a tip on how to get started. This will probably cost me a little bit of work, but use your supplier, right? Use their best practices as well, because it's both in our interest as well as in your interest that the technology implementation succeeds. Because if you don't have a happy experience with our product in this case, or each of us, nobody benefits from it. Nobody does. So use us.
Not trying to echo the same point, but instead of saying that the people it matters the most, I would say it's the mindset that you need to have first and foremost. And it's not the mindset that, okay, digital is going to solve everything. It's the, I need help. And a lot of us, we look for help, sometimes through our circles, of buddies who know, and then we just take whatever they know. Hey, you've got a vendor to recommend, oh, let me know. Oh, this thing's good, let me know. And there are also other avenues for help. And government, again, has many ways to help. We even have something called the CTO as a service. Something not really well marketed, but SMEs, and I'm talking about even larger companies, who need professional consultants to help analyze their business and tell them what step one, can actually get this service for free. And we have consultants from Accenture and Stone Forest that we are providing for free. Not many people know that. But all I need to do is say, I want someone to talk to us, right? And we can help. So if you're really just still cautious about this, the mindset just to say, I want to talk to someone and find out, I think that should be step one. My takeaway, talk to people, yeah, and get thinking, get started.
My takeaway, get all of your people on that digital journey. All my staff in Shanghai, from that transformation project we did, full procure to pay, fully digitized. All of those staff have gone on to greater and bigger jobs. And, you know, one of my team is leading Asia Pacific purchasing in terms of digitization. Another one went back to India. He became the Center of Excellence General Manager. He's now running a team of about 45 people doing digitization. And that's why I'm saying to you, if you train your people properly, they will enjoy it. They will go to the next level and they will get so much out of it. It will help them in their future career. Sell that to them. Sell that vision to them. And it will come to reality. And if you've got their engagement, if they're on board and they can see the dream and they come along with you, then you will be successful, your organization will be successful, and they will be successful in the future.
Well, wonderful. I mean, I never expected, honestly, this to be very well synced. So thank you, Ian, Sunil, Daniel, Ivo, Andy, and Tony. I mean, my takeaway from learning from you all today, frankly, is that I don't know how you put in your slide, Andy. You said empower, enable, and engage, and that's something which caught my attention. And if I really connect that to what has been discussed now, especially when Tony, as the last person to give the takeaway, when he says put your people on the digital roadmap, right? And you also mentioned that there are various avenues. Talk to people, bring in somebody who could do it. And when I hear from other panelists also, it's the empowerment that one needs to be given. So through empowerment, you can enable a lot of things, isn't it? And then what do you do with that is that you engage. Now, I want to continue that journey by saying that when you empower and when you enable, you obviously engage with the right aspects, with the right thoughts, with the right people. And when you engage, obviously you're going to evolve yourself together with your journey partner, whether it is a vendor or a customer or anybody else, right? So I would like to continue from engage, evolve, which obviously will elevate you and your organization to better heights. So thank you, gentlemen, for this wonderful panel session. It's been a pleasure. And thank you to the audience and thank you to the live audience too. Really, it's been nice. Thank you so much.
Thank you.